All right, folks, welcome into the Natty State Sports post-game reaction show. I am John Neighbors alongside Andrew Ellis. And yeah, sorry for the late arrival, but, heaven forbid, we thought that this game might be a little close, might be a game that goes down to the wire, or at least makes it a little bit competitive. And if anybody was going to blow anybody out, we thought it was going to be the Arkansas Razorbacks. That's what we thought. But you know what happened to the boy who thought, Andrew? He thought he farted, but he crapped his pants. And that's exactly what Arkansas did today. They crapped their pants. 77-64. South Carolina gets the victory over the Razorbacks. Everything we talked about after that A&M game, Andrew, we felt good. We felt like, okay, maybe this team, this is the type of win that can figure it out. They battled through adversity. They gave up a big lead, but they got the win. It was a celebration. Everyone's feeling good. Nope. Because this game really wasn't even close. I guess, Arkansas never led in this game. South Carolina is a good team. Give them a lot of credit. And maybe they're better than what most people thought because they didn't look like the 14th worst team in the SEC. But this was just an utter, total destruction of Razorback basketball once again.
Yeah, and it's tough because, you'd love to do the thing where you're like, hey, they came out and punched Arkansas in the mouth and they couldn't respond. They really didn't. It wasn't like an outstanding performance. They knocked down some threes early, but a lot of those shots were uncontested. At one point, our boy Scotty Bordelon was tracking it. I think he said in the early going they were 4 or 5 on uncontested looks, and that was like 6 minutes into the game. It wasn't like South Carolina did anything crazy. All that ball movement that we loved and we talked about, all that short rotation that we loved and we talked about, all the kind of body language, the continuity, and we're like, hey, it looks like maybe they have something they can build on. To say that this was a step back would be an understatement. And man, I just hope there's nobody that consumes our content only on the reaction shows. Yeah. And they're like, where they're watching it like it's a Netflix binging where they're like watching it episode to episode because we probably look like some goobers.
We do.
But to be fair, John, we put out our disclaimer all week. We did. All this goes out the window if they lose to South Carolina. And they did it.
They did.
They lost to South Carolina. I'm just a little bit ashamed that as a guy who's lived this Arkansas sports fandom and sports observing for so long, like that I didn't sniff this one out. Normally I'm good at sniffing out when Arkansas is going to lay a real stinker.
when they're going to crap their pants.
Yeah, like it's when the boy that cried wolf poops his pants, normally you can sniff it a little bit when it's coming. We didn't sniff this one at all.
Nope.
We kind of, the only thing we did was like, hey, maybe if they crap the bed, then we'll have to reverse everything. And here we are. That's the world we live in, John.
And it sucks because, we looked at that game against A&M and hoping that maybe, just maybe, it was going to be this game against South Carolina, which, again, they were 3-1 coming in here. They are definitely an improved team from what they were last year. But seeing the schedule ahead of them, not to go too far ahead, this was a game. It's like, okay, if you want to get back on track, you want to be an NCAA tournament team, this is a game you have to win. You cannot lose this game. Because let's be honest, you never need to lose any home games. Right. But especially against teams not named Kentucky, not named Tennessee, not named whoever that is the creme de la creme of the conference right now. You had to take care of business against a team like South Carolina, and you didn't at all. And in this game, once again, Tremont Mark was really the only offensive threat in this one. He had 18 points in 32 minutes of play. But, hey, if he scored 35 again, they would have won. But that was because remember, if we said on my show, I believe it was on Thursday or Friday, we were like, you can't have another game where you got to count on Tremont Mark to get you 30 and expect to win, because as good of a player as he is, he's not. That's not team basketball. That's not a recipe for success. And again, we saw it here today.
Yeah, and it's baffling to me. I don't know who it is that's in Muss's ear that is telling him that they need to still do this 12-man. They played 12 guys in the first half, John.
Unreal. And
what's crazy is in the postgame the other day, Muss even acknowledged, he was like, we can't keep playing 10, 11 guys all the time. We can't keep doing that. Well, then why is it still happening? It seemed like, and I get it. A guy messes up, you want to pull him out of the game. A guy doesn't close out on the 3, you want to pull him out of the game. But it's like, when you're trying to build a team and build some continuity and something to move forward with, I just don't know how you come out at home and after your biggest win of the year and you play 12. Denijay Harris played first half minutes, John.
When I saw him coming in, I'm like, dude, this is bad.
And by the way, Joseph Pinion, who we talked about the other day, wasn't even one of them. He didn't even play. So it's like it was very interesting. Whatever semblance of consistency we thought they were going to have in the rotation, clearly they do not. And we saw this happen before where they had, I believe it was the Lipscomb game where they played the entire same lineup the second half, and it was like, oh, maybe they found something. Next game they go right back to their old ways. I think it speaks to a larger point, John, where we can do the game still, because I think there's 13 conference games left. We can still do the thing where, hey, if they win X amount of games, they'll be this. If they win Y amount of games, they'll be that. I don't think we can reasonably expect this team to be consistent in any way. So I don't even think, like, sure, Arkansas could beat Ole Miss on Wednesday. They could beat Kentucky at home next week. They could do a lot of things.
I could win the lottery,
Correct.
There's a lot of things we could do.
I mean, they could have beaten South Carolina at home, God forbid. But yeah, I think that anyone at this point who is expecting this team to do the same thing multiple times in a row and have that consistency, it's just we're at that point where until they do it, we just can't expect them to. And so we thought we were going to see a little bit of progress, and to say that we did not, again, is just a massive understatement. And man, it feels like even bigger than a step back.
Yes, it does. I agree. That's how I exactly feel. You said it right. I feel like this is not just a bad game or like, hey, just give South Carolina because they just played out of their minds. Because, again, they played well. They shot 50% from three. They hit 9 of 18 from three. 28 of 54, hit 52% of their shots. They out-rebounded Arkansas 39-27. And, boy, did that feel like they out-rebounded them. Surprisingly enough, both teams ended up with 8 offensive rebounds, even though it felt like South Carolina completely dominated the offensive rebounds. But I'm with you. It feels like this feels like just, again, a week ago when you lost to Georgia or you lost to Florida in the way you did. That's what it felt like. You scored 64 points. And what is the most concerning thing to me, and there's a lot, and we'll get to all your comments, folks, and get to your reactions too. But it certainly felt like to me that kind of like a Florida, kind of like a Georgia, kind of like in other games we've seen, if this team does not get off to a good start, if this team gets hit in the mouth and they get down big, they suddenly revert to just, we don't know what to do. But they start doing dumb shots on offense. The breakdowns on defense is disgusting. The bad fouls, the bad decision-making, everything was a problem. Like, I'm trying to find any sort of redeeming quality in this, and I can't. I really can't. Chandler Lawson, 4.7 rebounds. Trevin Brazil, what in the heck, my man? 3 points, 6 rebounds, and 25 minutes of play. Granted, he only shot 3 times, but why?
Again, that's a big problem too. The fact that he only shot 3 times. I don't know who else is to blame for that. John, did you see I had a mean tweet during the game?
What was your mean tweet? Give us to me.
I said that the Trevin Brazil point shaving documentary that comes out in 2037 is going to be a good one,
dude.
I know that's like, we don't like to make fun of college kids, all that. I'm poking fun, and I will say the reason why I feel I'm entitled to do that is because I've defended Trevin Brazil so much. I've come on this very program and defended Trevin Brazil and said, man, I think I predicted him to have a big game last game, didn't really happen. Curtis thought he was going to hit his prop. Like we know how talented this guy is, and like we talked about the other day on the show, like we've seen him be effective in different roles. Heck, we've seen him this year, completely turn that Duke game around. So it's like, it's not like we're questioning whether Trevin Brazil can be a good player or not, or what he can do on a basketball court. The answer is unlimited. We can play the potential game all we want, but I just think with this current team, whether it's the fit, whether it's the injury, he doesn't feel great. I don't know. Maybe it's just mentally he's lost confidence. I don't know what it is, but you can point to a bunch of different things, but it's just not happening with this current setup. And I thought in this particular matchup, I thought there was a chance that they would not play him in that second half and just kind of lean on Graham and Mackay to see if they can attack the interior of the defense. Because early on in the game, John, the only success Arkansas was having was Devo making a few plays and getting the ball to the middle of the – and you saw Jalen Graham and Chandler Lawson finish a couple of those looks. Even Mackay finished a few. And, Trevin, for as talented as he is, he just didn't seem like they were able to exploit his athleticism against a smaller – I say smaller. They're South Carolina's a physical team, but a short team. You would think that an athlete like Trevin Brazil, this would be the kind of matchup he could get going in. And we just keep waiting. And like we said with the team overall, big picture, it's like we can keep talking about what they can and can't do and what hypothetically could happen. But at this point, I mean, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results. That's what we're doing here. And look, I don't want people to think that we're just, if they watch last game's reaction, they think we were over the moon excited. We even kind of said it in last week's reaction, or in the reaction to the A&M game, that like it wasn't flawless, but we just felt like they were going in the right direction. I think today's game was just proof and evidence that they are not going in that right direction.
And I think a lot of it was hope too, where at least on my end, I was hopeful that each and every year under Muss, they had that game, that one game that they got back on track. And it was always after about the third or fourth SEC game, it seemed like. Yeah. I compared it the game against A&M almost to the game that they had against LSU 2 years ago on the road. Granted, it was on the road, but that LSU
Keith Smart
team
coached game.
Yes, the Keith Smart coach game because Muss was in his sling. But you went on the road, you were down, and you stormed back, and you won. And that LSU team was really good. Like, they had a lot of talent. I was like, okay, maybe that's the type of game. Maybe that's what the A&M game is going to be. And, I mean, you could not have had a worse showing, at least in my mind. I mean, I guess it could always be worse.
Yeah,
but it could always be worse. But as far as my expectations, this was kind of a worst-case scenario where you look completely and totally inept. You reverted back to bad defense, bad offense, bad rotations. The guys that you need to count on each and every game were no-shows. Again, Tremont Mark had 16, but that was about it. And I know we'll be joined by Curtis Wilkerson and Scotty Borderland here after a while and get their thoughts and opinions on what Muss had to say in the press conference as well as some of the players. But it's just really hard for me. I guess the question is right now, Andrew, is it over? Like, I know 15 games you mentioned, or however many games is left, but to me, it just feels like
inaccurate numbers. I don't know what their actual number is.
They are right now 1-4, so 18 games minus 5. There's 13 games left.
Wait,
yeah,
yes,
there's 18 games, so 13 games left. But with 13 games left, sitting at 1-4, knowing the schedule, knowing what this teams look like, is it over?
Well, it's not over because, like I said, technically there's 13 games. They could just go 12-1 or 10-2 or 10-3 or whatever it is. I'm going to say yes, just simply because mathematically Arkansas is going to drop to like 120, 125 in the net, maybe even lower. You lose by 13 at home to a team that is not very good. I mean, metrics wise, I think they're in the top 75. Like, it's not a bad loss yet. But I think this loss is only going to get worse because I think South Carolina has overachieved to this point in the season. So, I mean, they just lost to Georgia at home on whatever it was, Tuesday or Wednesday. I could see South Carolina ending up in the bottom half of the SEC. And so I think this is as good as this loss is ever going to get. And you just look down the stretch, like the Kentucky game is going to be harder than this game.
Yes, it is.
The Ole Miss game on Wednesday, I know they just came off of a tough loss against LSU. On the road, that's going to be as tough a game. That's going to be tougher than this game, I would imagine. You play Georgia at home, the same Georgia team that we all said sucked. They beat you by 20, and they just beat this same South Carolina team at home. I'm just looking at the schedule. There's winnable games. Like Arkansas plays, I believe, 2 games against Missouri, or maybe they go to Como or whatever. But there's winnable games on the schedule. They'll have LSU at home. There's plenty there. But I mean, Curtis and I were talking about it about halftime of like how many games realistically will they be favored in? I think the answer is only going to be 3 or 4 down the stretch. I mean, just as things are currently constructed. Obviously, if they go on a run. And so I guess we should always have that disclaimer of like, hey, they could just, that these moments we're talking about, maybe they happen, but we're done. We're exiting the business of predicting those games to happen before they happen. I mean,
done.
We can go ahead and just mail it in on that one. Like we're done predicting something that hasn't happened yet. And so we'll wait and see. I mean, there's still a lot of time left, but I think from a mathematics metric standpoint, I don't see a realistic path to them getting an at-large bid. I think it's going to take something special and potentially even something in the month of March for Arkansas to get in the NCAA tournament at this point.
I'm just so disappointed. And it's not even for the sake of like, oh, I wanted Arkansas to win. Because, it's a lot more fun if we get to go to an NCAA tournament, and go to the travel and all that.
We can't even go to Dayton, man.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, we're going to end up, best case scenario, like a home game in the NIT. That's best
also,
case
we kept
right
talking
now.
about the NIT Final Four in Indianapolis, which we learned it's at.
Yeah,
Arkansas would have to win 3 games to get there, John. I don't think they would have to win 3 straight. I don't think they can do that either. So
yeah. Well, you mentioned the schedule too, because the SEC is a much more improved conference. It's gotten better every year. But you're talking about your next game's on the road against a top 25 team in Ole Miss. Yeah. They're number 22 in the country right now. Chris Beard is a phenomenal coach. So you have that game. Then you have Kentucky at home, top 10 team. Which College Game Day is coming to. Great.
We should mention.
Who all is stoked for that? Finally. College Game Day for the first time ever comes to Bud Walton Arena in basketball, and they're going to be rolling into a team that's sitting at probably 1-5 in SEC play and completely out of the mix. So that's disappointing. And then after that, you got on the road to Missouri and LSU, which those teams aren't good, but still road games nonetheless. Tennessee at home, you ain't beating them. At Mississippi State, you never win at the hump. Then you have. At Texas A&M, you're not winning the rematch down there in College Station.
Especially because you just played the worst version of A&M on your home court, and you beat them by 1 via
with
prayer.
A buzzer beater. You gave up a 20-point lead to do it.
Without Henry Coleman also. And South Carolina was out without one of their top guys today too. So, I mean, it's...
Yeah, you got Missouri at home, Vanderbilt at home, then at Kentucky, LSU at home, and at Alabama. So I'm looking at the rest of the schedule right now for Arkansas basketball, and you talk about being favored in a game. which I agree they will be, but I think the only games I see them being favored in is that Missouri and Vanderbilt game at home. Maybe.
Yeah. LSU is the weird one because I mentioned them. I think they have them at home, right? LSU.
Yeah, they have LSU on the road and at
LSU.
home
What are they, like 4-1 in SEC play? Like they've kind of overachieved a little bit too. They just beat Ole Miss that we were talking about. So it's like even and again, we can talk about what games they might or might. This was a layup. This game was a gimme. This was like whatever hypothetical. So it's like, look, we're not saying Arkansas can't beat whoever you want to throw in there. All those games you just listed, Arkansas hypothetically could win. I mean, we've seen them beat Duke. We've seen them play with a lot of these top teams, so we know they can do it. But yeah, I agree. I mean, it's gonna be an uphill battle, and it's one that they just keep digging themselves further and further and losing these games at home. That's where it's tough because even the worst of Arkansas teams that we've had over the years, we've watched Mike Anderson teams that couldn't win anything on the road. Even they hold serve at home, and they beat bad teams at home. Arkansas's not even beating bad teams at home. I mean, Greensboro and South Carolina. This is just something we haven't seen before, and it's been a while, so it's tough to process a little bit.
It really is. It really is. Folks, give us your comments in the stream. I know we have a lot to get to there. Appreciate everybody watching and listening in. John Neighbors alongside Andrew Ellis. We're going to have Curtis Wilkerson and Scotty Bordelin joining us live from Bud Walton Arena once Eric Musselman gets done with his press conference, which looks like it's going on right now. So, again, what a fast-moving game, too. I know we talked about it because we were kind of late, but the game ended under 2 hours. That's what's crazy. And you can't blame the officials on this one, too, because there was no fouls against South Carolina. Had 4 free throws in the second half. I was
thinking about it. Arkansas had so many, not to get into the weeds of the X's and O's. Right. I'm going to let Curtis and Scotty handle this a little bit. But, last game, one of the things we talked about was how many assisted field goal attempts Arkansas had in that first half where the ball was moving. I think they took 23s, and 19 of them came off of a pass, which is like normal good stuff that good basketball teams do. Reason why South Carolina wasn't fouling is because all of Arkansas' shots came in isolation, just one-on-one, where that's not when fouls happen. Fouls happen when you're moving that ball and you get the defense rotating and the guys late. Like, the fouls are not going to happen if you're just, waiting on Tremont Mark to make a mid-range jumper, and there's no back cuts, there's no movement, there's no ball movement, no player movement.
There ain't nothing.
And so it's like, I looked up. I remember there was a point where Tremont Mark got fouled late in the first half, and I was like, oh, will he go to the line? I'm like, oh, no, that's only their 5th foul. So so I guess not. But I guess it's just tough. I mean, any of the like we said earlier or last game, like Arkansas seems like when they fix an issue, it's like whack-a-mole. It's like they're like, oh, we couldn't defend the 3-point line. Well, we fixed that, but now we're giving up everything at the rim, and it's like they just have these different issues. It's like Arkansas can solve problems, but they can't solve enough quick, and I don't know. They can't figure anything out, and again, we just comes back to identity, which we've talked about so much. It's like what does this team do well? It's like when push comes to shove and it's like, hey, we need a bucket or we need to stop. It's like, I don't even think this team knows how to make those things happen. It
reminds me of Office Space. You've seen Office Space, right?
I have not seen Office Space.
Okay, first off, you got to watch that movie. Okay. It's a great one. But either way, it's when they're trying to decide whether or not to lay off some people, corporate trying to lay off some people. They have the guy coming in and he's kind of asks, he's like, so what is it that you do here?
Yeah, kind of like, I'm familiar with that.
Right. He's like, what is it that you do? And that's how I feel like with the Razorback basketball team. It's like we're sitting here trying to figure out, what is it that you do? Like, what is it? What are you good at? Where's your value? Why are you here? Why are you a team? Why are you playing basketball? Like, what is it that you do well? Because there's nothing that you do well at all right now. Like, I still have yet to see it. A lot of comments, though, coming in. We'll try to get to some of those folks that, again, hit us up with them across all of our streaming platforms. Some of them are just statements. Like Devin here says, first pitch is February 16th.
Correct.
That's true.
Yeah. 4-game series against James Madison.
That's right.
It's going to be a barn burner.
I heard a lot of those baseball comments in the Bud Walton today. Everybody's kind of moving on. Lance says, pure crap. No heart, no hustle, no defense. Brazil is lazy. No movement on offense. Just absolutely pitiful.
Not an unfair comment. I got to be honest.
I know. I that's the thing. It's like, hey, listen, we're using this as therapy session, folks. So we're not going to hate on you if you're mad. Rusty says we were getting blown out at home because we're horrible. That's the other thing, too, is when I know you won against A&M at home, but 2 of your 3 SEC games, Auburn, South Carolina, weren't even competitive. Like,
and by the way, people might look at the score and be like, they lost by 13. Was it a blowout?
It was.
I promise it was blowout. I mean, it was a 10-point game pretty much the entire
I think the closest
minutes.
Arkansas got was 7 points on back-to-back threes from Tremont Mark.
Right.
He did the
calm down motion, and then they immediately gave up back-to-back threes.
Yeah, and like they South Carolina took a timeout, which is a great move by Lamont Paris. And that was as close as it got for Arkansas. I think that was with 8 minutes to go, 10 minutes to go, something like that. Or was that even further
I think it might have been a little bit more than that. I think it was maybe like 11 minutes.
That was as close as Arkansas got.
By the way, Eric Musselman called 2 first-half timeouts.
Yes, that's when you know
I don't know if I've seen him call 2. I mean, obviously timeouts happen, but usually if Muss is calling a timeout, it's to, for a very specific reason. Had like 2 in like a span of 5 minutes earlier. I mean, it just tells you he's almost out of answers as well.
David says it's time to play for the future. Only guys that are young and likely to come back. Well,
so
I mean,
that's a long list of guys there.
Yeah, and I don't know who's coming back, to be honest.
That's what I meant. Is like, I mean, I don't even know. I mean, like, Layden Blocker is one who played a good bit today. It's the guy y'all want to see. I mean, maybe you can see a lot of him.
Because we even had a question from Susan saying, "Why is Bay Fall not playing?" It's like, what could
again? Like we said, when they lose, we didn't hear Bay Fall's name the other day, but now,
but Bay Fall, like, folks, it's like, and it's nothing against Bay Fall, but it's like you wouldn't seen Bay Fall in that limited time. There was nothing that he had that you're just like, oh, he could help the team right now. And it's just, he's a raw freshman. It's nothing against him. He's just he's an 18-year-old freshman that, it's just he needs time to develop. See, Magnum says help defense in the paint and running out to shooters on the perimeter have been killing us for the last couple of years. Yeah. Now
by the way, Arkansas jumps. They do that. Now they do. That's a thing they've always done, kind of, is like they sprint out to the 3-point line and do those jump contests where they leave their feet and almost force the guy to drive. But it seems like Arkansas falls for every pump fake possible.
Yes, and what's disappointing is it's usually guys like a Brazil or somebody where it's like, dude, you should know better. Like you are because at this point in time, I know he was hurt last year, but you're talking about Brazil being a third-year player,
right?
And practicing, and this is and that's another thing that's disappointing. Here's what it is. If you told me that this was the way that last year's team was playing with a bunch of freshmen, then maybe I could understand it and buy into it. But you're not playing any freshmen except for Layden Blocker sometimes.
Right.
You're playing guys that
and he's not even nearly one of the bigger issues. You know what I mean? Like, there's people playing much worse than him.
Like, you're having guys that have been playing for 3, 4, 5 years in major college basketball, and they are making mistakes where it looks like they're rookies. And I'm not taking anything away from saying that, coaching is beyond blame, because this is the team that Muss assembled. And I don't think, it's just, and it's not saying that like, oh, Muss is terrible, need him, fire him. But I think criticism can be okay. And I think that there's a lot of criticism to go all around for everybody right now, because there is nothing redeeming about this team, or at least consistently enough to say that it's redeeming right now.
Yeah, and I think that's an important clarification that, like, obviously we're not doing the Muss should be out of here bit. But you're right that, I mean, like, if we can't talk about this team and talk about the issues that are going on, and I just think that there's no connective tissue really. And I mean, we talked about identity and like they don't have by the way, I'm glad you told me that was from Office Space, because I use that line all the time. Yeah, I had no idea where it was from. I guess that's a classic millennial thing there. Yeah. But yeah, I just think like when you watch this team defensively, like there's so many plays where it's like there's a miscommunication of some sort, where it's like, oh, I went out and I came over and flashed and then I left, but really I was supposed to, like, there's so many of those little things. And look, I'm not in the meeting rooms. I don't know what Arkansas's scheme on these things is supposed to be. And, someone smarter than me can figure that out. But there's just things where it's like clear miscommunications that the entire arena can see. Feels like those are still happening at a pretty alarming rate. And so it just speaks to the identity and connectiveness of this team, like connectiveness, connectivity.
Hey, listen, I know what you're talking about.
Connect Four.
I make up words all the time.
Oh, exactly.
It's good.
Yeah. But yeah, it's like I just don't feel like this team is a unit, and like, there's pieces on this team that we like. Like, we like Tremont Mark. We think L. Ellis is a talented guy. We like Devo Day. Like, there's pieces, but they're not equal to the sum of their parts, I guess. I don't know what the term is there, but it just doesn't seem like whatever we're supposed to be getting. We're getting about 60% of pretty much everyone across the board. And again, like, that kind of falls on Muss. That falls on some of these players. And I wonder, me and Curtis were talking about it. Gus Arginal, this is
we
a
just
guy
had
that
a comment about Gus Arginal being a big factor.
And look, I'm not sitting here saying Gus Arginal over the last 2 or 3 years was like running these meetings and was the answer to all these problems. But I think when you don't have a voice that's very important like that in the room, I think there's a little bit of a transition that
I do too.
Some people, and I'm going to talk about us, where like we might have just overlooked that a little bit in the offseason, where there's all these variables that we talk about and discuss with the roster and personnel and whatever. I think maybe we talk about how much Arkansas has been able to make these turnarounds throughout the year. I wonder how much Gus Arginal played a role in that. You would imagine that all this coaching staff has had a huge hand in that. And so I'd love to hear, some of these answers. I can't wait to hear what Muss has to say at the press conference, or if he just completely, we got classic angry Muss.
Oh, yeah.
Following a bunch of impulse decisions. Who knows? But
we're going to have Curtis and Scotty join us here in just 1 second. I did want to get to this comment real quick, though. From the Warrior Way, he says, Muss panic subs, doesn't let his guys play through stuff. He's always been that way with certain players, but his doghouse is full this year. He's got to be better. And, I know that you kind of brought it up a little bit and discussed about the fact that, it's worked before, and every player's different. Every personality is different. Some guys respond positively, some guys don't. But it certainly looks like the panic subs. It's not to say that, if you just let players play, then this team would be undefeated or anything like that. But it is certainly looking like that the talent on this team, the guys that can play, that are capable of playing, that maybe, just maybe, the way that the subs have worked and the replacing of guys has been impactful in their mental psyche. Like, I think that's a factor.
Well, like in sports, there's always those guys. And I mean, like, if anyone who's ever been on any team or been around anyone, like there's some guys, if you get in their face and you yell at them, that kind of motivates them. That brings out the best version of them. And some guys you kind of got to coddle a little bit. You need to boost their confidence. It seems like whatever it is, it's been the wrong button. Whether it's always
been wrong. Yep.
Tough love for the guy that doesn't handle criticism well, or like coddling the guy that needs a little kick in the rear. Like, it seems like every guy, it's like, you just watch their body language. Like, this team just looks disinterested. And I don't know who that falls on or why that happens. Or, Muss always talks about how this team is great in practice. And so maybe that's what the issue is like, they have all these answers in practice and things are great. And you have all these veterans who look the part. And again, like, I get why Muss is frustrated, because we do the same thing all week where we watch them win a game, and all of a sudden when they win, we're like, man, Tremont Mark's good. Trevor Brazil's got this potential, and Devo looks better. We start doing the thing. I bet in practice things just look fine, and then they get out in the game and it just doesn't carry over. I don't know if that's just Muss has called out their competitive nature a lot. I don't know if it's that. I don't know if I'm qualified to answer these questions, but man, there's just such a disconnect between what this team should be and what it looks like in real life.
I will say, we'll get Scotty and Curtis here in a second, but Jeremiah Davenport, 8 points, 6 shots. So I hit my prop because there's over 5.5 shots.
Oh, was that your prop?
Yeah, over 5.5 shots attempted and over 5.5 points. Nailed it.
Look at
winners all around.
I hit mine with Chandler Lawson, by the way. So at least we'll get to lay our head with some money under our pillow tonight to soften the blow of this tough
something like that. Let's go ahead and welcome in Scotty Borland and Curtis Wilkerson. And fellas, appreciate it. You guys joining us and everything. We've been giving our thoughts on it. But how are y'all? How are things going over there in Bud Walton Arena? How are you doing?
Well, first of all, I was kind of hoping you guys would have this wrapped up by now.
No. It was a game that went under 2 hours, and there was no way that we were going to have this thing wrapped up. Like, because we got a lot of pissed off.
This show's going to be longer than the game.
Yeah, it will be. It might be, actually.
Well, I think I can sum up the press conferences pretty quick. We had Jeremiah Davenport in and then Muss, and it seems like Arkansas did not play hard today, and nobody knows why that's the case.
Great.
Fair enough.
Yeah, he wrapped it up. I mean, he summed it up right there. I think we can just end this thing, John.
Hope y'all enjoyed the
See
show.
you guys tomorrow.
We're going to be moving on.
But I will say, me and Curtis were sitting up here getting ready to watch the Zoom, and Arkansas's got 5 or 6 guys, 7 guys out here getting shots up post game, which people love to talk about. Like, they're the only people on the planet that get shots up after games. These Arkansas guys. But a couple South Carolina players made an appearance, including Meechie Johnson, and they filmed a TikTok on Arkansas's floor. Came in their house, took over their house, got some TikTok work in.
Some pretty creative dances there. Pretty creative. Got to give them credit.
Yep.
That makes it like even
a sad deal.
But you know what? After that performance by Arkansas and that type of win for South Carolina, because I don't know when the last time that they've had success to start a year in conference play, but also I don't care who you are. I don't care how bad Arkansas is. Winning at Bud Walton Arena is always a big deal. So I don't blame them. Like, they played really well. They shot 50% from 3. They shot over 50% from the field. They've led the entire game. And even Andrew brought up too, ended up being a 13-point loss. And it felt like it was a 23-point loss. It did not feel like it was 13 points.
Oh yeah. That wasn't a competitive game. Pretty much the entire time. I mean, I don't know why, and I don't understand. And I think that's kind of where Muss is at with this team right now. I mean, it's not even Jekyll and Hyde at this point. It's just, you don't know what you're going to get. And I don't know how you coach effort. I mean, he's got to figure it out. He's the one that gets paid the big bucks here. And so, anybody who thinks we don't criticize him when things are going wrong, I mean, that's crazy. Like, he's failed with this team so far. He would agree with that. But it's just different, like a team, that's not making shots, or a team that's having some struggles defensively versus a team that's just not playing hard. Like, they're not motivated. And that's just what I can't wrap my head around with this group. Like, it makes no sense to me. And then to ask, the players, coach, and everybody else out there, it's wild.
Here we go. Yeah, we're back on there too. Yeah, I had a little dump in the in the internet there at Bud Walton Arena, but we got him back. So yeah, guys, it's like, it's also a thing too, to where we kind of asked the question of, is it over? Like, is the season over? Can we go ahead and say this team is not a tournament team? This team's not even a postseason team right now. Like, is this season over for the Razorbacks?
I looked at Curtis during the last media timeout and I said, I think I'm officially out on this team. I mean, there's lots of games to go, but like Curtis mentioned a second ago, how like you cannot force somebody to play with effort. You cannot make somebody defend well, and you cannot make players make shots. Like, we can talk about, who Eric is playing, because, we thought the rotation had gotten shortened the other night. And then today he played like 12 guys in the first half, including Denaje Harris. And then Layden Blocker played. I mean, I don't know if he played quite a bit or not. I haven't looked at the final box. But yeah, I mean, I don't see a solution. And, you listen, if you go to the Natty State Sports YouTube channel, Eric's postgame presser is up. I think he's past the point of being mad and frustrated. He's just kind of like, he's not mad in there anymore. Like, I think it's just, I don't know that he's got a solution right now, obviously.
Well, if he doesn't have a solution now, he's not going to, in my opinion. Like, I mean, for crying out loud, like, you're 5 games into the SEC season. You're already behind the 8 ball because you've already lost some games that would have been able to help you have your net ranking and everything. And because the way I look at it is, with 13 games left in conference play, the only way that you even get a chance at even getting into the NCAA tournament right now is in those final 13 games, you win 10 of them. And I don't think that's going to happen, because that would put you at 11-7 in conference play.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, like, they had such a bad non-conference where it's like there's years past where, like, for instance, last year, Arkansas was able to overcome their slow start in SEC play. Arkansas, I don't know if they can do it on the court, but, like we talked about the metrics, like, they didn't give themselves any breathing room with their non-conference. They wasted the Duke win by going 1-2 in the Bahamas and losing at home to Greensboro. And like, again, the margin of victory matters here. So when you lose by 750 to Auburn, like, that stuff knocks your resume. And when you lose by 13, like, if you lose by 1 at home, obviously it doesn't help you. But when you lose by 13 to a team in South Carolina that's going to finish like 97th in the net, like, that's going to knock you. And so it's like that kind of stuff. You have to do so much to overcome it. And, like you said, not only would Arkansas have to win probably 9 or 10 of those games, they would have to win the big one. You have to have a win against an Alabama or a Kentucky or something like that to overcome so many of the stupid things they've done on this resume. Let me ask you guys this, guys. Is this the best case scenario for this team, that there's another global pandemic and that they ends during the SEC tournament and they win on Wednesday night and they can say, hey, we were going to make the tournament? Is that the best case scenario for this team?
They might have to pull a UCF and just claim, a tournament appearance, because Andrew, I think it was you actually that retweeted it during the game. I saw that too. One of the bracketologists out there said effectively that if Arkansas loses this game to South Carolina at home, that they're all but eliminated from, at large bid possibility. I mean, pending, going undefeated the rest of the way or whatever and picking off a bunch of wins. Obviously, they haven't shown us that they have the ability to do that on a consistent basis, but yeah, I mean, I there's no reason to think this is a tournament team right now. I feel kind of like an idiot, because I thought maybe they found something in that Texas A&M game. I think we all did, just with the rotation, the effort. They got the big win, and that's the kind of stuff that you can build momentum off of. But they just came out here and looked flat, man. Right out of the start, you could see it. There was no energy, no life, and I think Muss. We talked about the panic subs, but I mean, I probably would have panicked too. Like, you can't put 5 guys on the floor who are going to play hard and do what you need them to do. And you just got to keep searching until you find the right combinations. He was actually asked that in the post game, like, do you feel like the constant flux in the rotation might be having a negative impact on the guys? And he basically said, like, what do you want us to do? Stop trying? Like, if we don't have guys out there doing what they need to do, we got to find some who will. And I mean, I think he's right. Like, we'd like to see it down to 8 guys or 7 guys or whatever. Well, who the heck is it going to be?
It's tough, because it's a little bit unfortunate that, basketball is a game where you have to put 5 guys on the floor, because I don't think Arkansas's got 5 guys right now that, give effort. And the thing that bothers me the most is, Bud Walton. I don't want to say it used to be a place that's tough to play in, because it is a tough place to play in, but it doesn't look like it this year. Like, you can't even count on Arkansas to play well at home. They've gotten blasted on their home floor twice now, so you can't even count on them to play well at home. What do you think? Like, if you're not playing well at home, what's going to happen on the road, man? Like, if the same team, if we keep seeing the same things, they've got to go on the road. You're going to see the same things on the road that you do at home. Like, that feels like that will travel. Like, lack of effort travels. I feel like that's just
it stays home too. You need it to stay home.
Yeah.
I mean, can we all agree? Like, not that there's any excuse at all to losing by 32 points to Auburn at home, but South Carolina ain't Auburn. I mean, they played well today, but that's not. Say whatever you want. I don't care what the record is. Like, I don't think that team's going to make the NCAA tournament. If they do, like, it's very bubblish. Let's go to Dayton for the first four kind of thing. Like, that just can't happen at Bud Walton Arena ever under any circumstances. I just, man, I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around this one. Like, we think about like analysis and, breaking this stuff down, and it didn't play hard, man. It just doesn't make sense at all.
And you go back and look at the videos that we posted the last couple of days. I mean, I think for transparency's sake, we just need to talk about how loud wrong we were, minus John.
Well, hey, Scotty, I hate to do this. I'd love to be in Sunshine Pumper territory, but we have to address the cold, hard facts when we can. There are two members of this Natty State Sports team that hit their prop bets, and it's is the true. Some are saying the true ball knowers on this panel. Me and John, we're cashing out tonight. We hit our props. Chandler Lawson and Jeremiah Davenport did what they needed to do. I guess maybe you guys need to do a little bit more research next time. Maybe.
How many assists did L. Ellis have today?
Hey, listen, I think he may have passed the ball 6 times. I don't know if he got 6. He only got 2 assists. There may have been 6 passes though, so I was close.
I had him with 5 potential assists, 2 actual. He was the only guy that had more than 1 actual assist today. I mean, the sharing of the basketball is just terrible. It's a lot of. I mean, I get it. For a long time, people have said that Eric's offense, especially you get in the second half of games, it's a lot of dribble. One guy, go get a bucket, and it's kind of that. And Eric said post game, they got a bunch of guys on the team that don't know how to set up their teammates. Like, they draw a defender, they continue to keep driving to the rim or trying to put the ball on the floor instead of kicking the ball out to a guy who's, you draw a defender, somebody's got to be open. They don't do that well at all.
Well, I honestly might have to go into hiding for a little while. I think about those things that we put out there. I mean, and listen, it's a bold prediction, so I don't feel as bad about the 10 3-pointers. It's a bold prediction, something that shouldn't happen but might. That missed by a lot. But I also had Trevin Brazile, over 7.5 points, 7.5 rebounds, and I don't know, man. I just felt like at some point he's gonna, bounce back and play halfway decent, and that was a rough one. He's been down, but he's still been, finding a way to get 6.6 boards here and there, but he brought nothing to the table today. I don't know if he's injured or if he's lacking in confidence or what's going on there, but man, they're not going anywhere if they don't get that dude going.
Scored in double figures once in SEC play. Today, he took 3 shots.
3 shots.
Yeah, we were talking about that, and it's like how I think everybody going into the season felt like Trevin Brazile was at least a top 3 player on this team. I don't think there's any question about that.
I would have settled for playable.
Yeah, and 3 shots. 3 shots in 25 minutes. And what's crazy too, guys, Arkansas had 5 turnovers in the game. 5. So it wasn't even like they were just being sloppy with the ball and it was there's a bunch of turnovers and everything. They had 5 turnovers. South Carolina had 10. But as you mentioned, they had 20 assists. South Carolina did. Arkansas only had 9. So, I mean, the ratio percentage-wise is
the long projected draft pick that you have.
Well, Scotty, it goes back to what you were talking about of the potential assists. And like last game in the first half, especially, it was all of Arkansas's 3-point attempts were coming off of those passes and that good ball movement. How many shot attempts did Arkansas have that were not on not off of a pass today, just off the dribble or guys trying to create? Like a vast majority of their offense, and it's just not sustainable no matter how good you are. And it's definitely not sustainable when you don't get out in transition and you don't play defense and you don't shoot threes well either. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's like you have to be so good with the way Arkansas's offense, when they're in this mode where they're not sharing the ball, they have to be so good. You have to have a special performance from Tremont Mark just to get any semblance of consistency on offense. And it's not a formula that's going to get you wins consistently.
Yeah, I think as of right now, and I haven't rewatched this, so this could be off, but I have Arkansas with 20 potential assists today, and they took 62 shots.
That's unreal, man. I'm talking about less than a third of their shots are off a pass.
Yep.
That's disgusting.
That's what Eric was talking about. They don't know how to set each other up. They don't. It's put the head down, bull your way to the rim. It's not not cosmetically pleasing, as Eric likes to say. It's just it's bad, man. Straight up bad.
How funny would it have been if Scotty had pulled up the numbers and I was just completely wrong and they had did like every pass, every shot was an assist?
Yeah, no, that would have actually been quite funny too. I was even, looking at some of the comments too from some of the fans who are watching in here on this live stream. But it seems like a lot of these fans too, for the most part, are just kind of not only saying that the season's over, but then, hey, let's just start playing the young guys, get Blocker and Bayfall and, guys that are on the younger side trying to develop them and everything. Because, I don't know, like, what do you do for the rest of the season? Obviously, Muss and the team, you're going to continue to try to win. Like that, because at the end of the day, that's what you do. But do you think that maybe is now the point, or maybe they have to lose one or two more? Like, at what point do you start kind of saying, all right, this ain't it. We ain't doing it this year. So let's try to really change some things up and get some guys that could maybe help us out next year to get them some minutes in development.
Well, that's a tough call, because on one hand, like, you're 10-8, like, we know the situation this team is in. So in theory, like, yeah, that makes sense. Let's get those guys in there and build for the future and maybe get them some development and some confidence. But Arkansas is going to have to replace a ton of dudes anyway. And for them to have any type of momentum going into portal season, like, they need to win some games. And so you have to be weary of this thing just completely falling off the cliff, and you wind up with a below 500 record, and it's just a mess that nobody wants to come and get involved in. Like, so there is a balance to be had there. But yeah, at this point, I'm all for, why not? Let's see Bayfall a little bit here and there, Blocker, whoever those guys might be. But it is a delicate balance, because you have to play the long game. You're trying to win now. But this portal season is going to be crucial for, they're going to have to add like 8, 9, maybe 10 freaking guys to this roster. It's going to be a complete rebuild. And if you're coming off just an awful season, there's bad vibes. Let's look at football maybe right now, that kind of the situation they're in. That's not where you want to be. So I don't know. I don't know what Muss is going to do. I really have no clue going forward with who's going to get the minutes.
I say that you don't start playing those young guys right now, because you still got 13 league games left. There still is time to. The likelihood of a run happening as we sit here right now is highly unlikely, but there still are games to be played. There's still time to win a lot of games. If you get to maybe, I don't know when the time to call it really is, honestly, but maybe if you got, 3, 4, 5 SEC games left, and it's just, you're going absolutely nowhere fast. Maybe that's the point. But Blocker's getting some run. He got some run today. Bayfall, I think we remember watching him in the Bahamas against Armando Bacot, and he did well against Bacot for a couple of minutes, but I think it was just, he's too young to know better type of deal. Mm-hmm. But if you give him extended run, there's no telling what that looks like. And I don't, honestly, at this point, I don't think it's as productive as what you're seeing from the guys out there right now.
Yeah, I'm just at a loss, just like it seems like Muss and everybody is. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know what they can do. I don't know what they should do. I have no idea, but I just never would have guessed. I was actually talking to a buddy of mine at the game. I just never would have guessed that going into this season, if someone came up and told me, he's like, hey, this is going to be Muss's worst team, that I would believe you. Because I'm telling you right now, way they're playing right now, his first year where he had Adriel Bailey as his post player at 6'6", and like that, it was his team that won 20 games, but they were I think it was 11 seed in the SEC tournament. That team would have beaten this team by 20.
How many points would Mason Jones score on this Arkansas team? He could
name it. He could name his point total.
Yeah.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah. And Isaiah Joe would just hit threes in their face all the time. And Adriel Bailey would probably find a way to get 4 offensive rebounds.
He would dunk on Trevin Brazil somehow.
It's like, and that's what is so crazy to me, just crazy talk, that this team is literally Muss's worst team that he's had at Arkansas. I would have just never dreamed in a million years that'd be the case, but it is.
We've reached peak at the right time season. That's what this is about now. Arkansas's got a quote unquote peak at the right time. You're going to start hearing that term a lot. That's how you know your team sucks, when you start saying, well, maybe we're going to peak at the right time. We're going to peak here in March.
We're talking about this, potentially being, Arkansas's worst team since Muss has been here. Like, this year, they might not even be the best men's basketball team on campus this year. I mean, the managers beat South Carolina last night. I mean, they probably gave more effort than the actual team did today.
Start covering the manager.
The managers are ranked number 19 in the country. I don't know where you find those polls, but that's what it says on their Twitter. So I might want to get into practice and see those guys scrimmage, the actual Razorbacks, and what would happen.
Arena, is Muss the best coach in that arena right now?
I don't know, man. I don't know.
Curtis, you can't answer that question.
Yeah, no one wants to answer that. Somebody may be watching.
Of course he is. And I see on here at Carl in the comments, he says, I think Curtis at one time
on his forehead. He's like, yep, no, he got great coach.
Yeah, it's like he's saying that. But yeah, it's like we had Carl from the comments say, I think Curtis at one time said Muss was due a bad team. And here we are. This is the bad team.
I didn't think it was going to be this one, Carl. I got to be honest with you. I did not.
Like, I felt like after that Purdue game, again, I know it's an exhibition, but like after that Purdue game and they got the win, I'm like, okay, if this is the worst we're going to see this team where they haven't played together, this is their first thing. It was in front of a crazy crowd against a team that is a preseason top 5. And they got the victory. I don't even care if you like told me that they were just going to be a team that goes to the NCAA tournament and gets in as a 6 seed. But I was like, okay, this team has already impressed me to start. Like that was kind of a great. It was almost like the worst thing you could have had happen to this team, because now all of us, especially me, was like, okay, here we go. Like this is it. Like Ellis is going to be the guy going out there being the assist man when he had 8 assists. You know, everybody's ready to play. They have talent. They have length. They have size. They have athleticism. Like, they have it all. And with that, and even the Duke game too, I'm starting to realize that was more the anomaly. That was the exception to the rule. That the rule is what we saw today. And even A&M, that was more the exception to the rule. The rule is that this team is not a good basketball team. And if they do get wins, and if they do end up having a big win, say, because I feel like there's just looking at trends and how things go, you're going to have a win randomly against a team you probably shouldn't beat.
They will beat Kentucky. They're going to beat Kentucky next week.
It'll probably be like Kentucky at Rupp or even that, or like Bama at the end of the year. But just throwing that all out, like, that's going to be the exception. That's going to be where, okay, well, they just put it together, because the rule is this is just a bad basketball team. And until they find some sort of way, which I'm out. Like, I don't think that they're a good basketball team, but unless they just strung together like 4 or 5 straight wins, that's, again, any win that they have going forward is more going to be the exception to the rule.
Well, John, to your point, I went back and looked at the Duke box score during halftime because I was just curious.
Because you were bored and done.
Because I was bored. Caleb Battle scored 21 points against Duke. He took 13 shots and he hit a bunch of free throws. Trevin Brazile had 19 points and 11 rebounds. And L. Ellis, I didn't bold predict it that day, but he had 6 assists and 1 turnover. And I was just thinking about it. I'm like, are either of those 3 things that I just listed, are they even possible with this current team right now? Like, I don't, like, not only are they the exception, like, Caleb Battle might not score 21 points the rest of the year at this rate, you know? And it's like, I just look at those 3 things and like what had to happen for Arkansas to have success. And like John said, like, that's big time the exception. And that seems not like, it's just not a sustainable formula like we've been saying. And yeah, so I'm with you guys. I mean, it's tough.
Yeah. Right after the game ended, I went to Arkansas's KenPom page and I figured up Arkansas basketball's record since the calendar flipped to 2023. Does anybody have a guess as to what Arkansas's record is since 2023 began?
How many games is it?
They played 41 games now.
I would say, like, I'd probably go
22
18,
and 19.
like 19 games, like pretty much close to 500 maybe.
Yeah, they're 21 and 20. I mean, that's pretty mediocre mid basketball.
And that includes
the beginning of 2000. And that's not even taking into account the loss at LSU the night of the Liberty Bowl. So if you go back to that, they're literally 500. So if you go back to the night that SEC play began in the 22-23 season, Arkansas is 21 and 21 as a program. Completely mediocre since that night.
Mid, as the children say.
God, but that's truly, like, sums it up. Like, imagine if this team didn't make the Sweet 16 last year. Imagine if they didn't have that net ranking, like what the conversations would be like, right? Because I think that there would be people be like, hey, Muss needs to go. Like, there would be those conversations. But right now, I hate to look at it this way, but it's just reality. Muss isn't going anywhere as far as people Arkansas firing him.
If he does, it'll be his decision.
Yeah,
I'll just say that. Let's
exactly.
go out of there.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement on that. But it is one of those deals to where it's like, okay, we can't keep doing this, y'all. Like, we can't just keep going about SEC play and being average and being blah, and then just hoping that we can get into the tournament. And then, when that happens, then we can flip the switch.
Mm-hmm.
That's just not. I mean, you can't do it that way. You can't go through all this.
This team doesn't have a switch to flip, man.
Yeah,
they just don't.
You can't hope that the net ranking is going to save you to get into the NCAA tournament, just falling backwards into it and setting up as a 9 seed. That's just not a recipe for success. At some point in time, this team has got an underbust. This has probably been, I don't have many criticisms. I don't have many things to complain about. But one of the things that I've always kind of frustrated me about is just the regular season and conference play. Just other than that year with Moses Moody and all them, they have been extremely inconsistent. They haven't been able to put things together. And it just becomes like frustrating. Because I'm tired of just sitting here and saying, all right, well, I'm going to be back. I'll wait. I'm going to wait till it gets there. And, they start 1-4. Well, hold on. Like, we still got to wait. It's like, no, I'm tired of doing that. I don't want to wait. I want to see it. Just give it to me a little bit, at least in the beginning part.
Well, and you talk about what you're saying about looking back at the other years, and it kind of makes you reevaluate some of this. Because now that they're going to end up stinking this year, you kind of look at last year's team and you're like, man, maybe those red flags were, they dodged a bullet a little bit more than we realized. You can go further, and I hope the haters aren't listening because they're going to get some fuel from this. You could go back through the whole thing. I mean, Arkansas's initial tournament run, they were down at half to Colgate, or maybe not down at half. They got down early to Colgate and then kind of made their way back. That Texas Tech game, which was awesome, like that was an ugly one, like low-scoring
really
game.
Ugly.
You get Oral Roberts in the Sweet 16. They had that weird game against Vermont, New Mexico State. Like, there's been some weird. In the Gonzaga game, that's a flawless victory. Can't say anything. No notes there.
Yeah.
But I just meant
even the Illinois game was really, like, last year was pretty. I know Illinois had their struggles, but it was a good performance. I think they ended up winning by like 13, 15 in the end. But yeah, I get what you're saying though.
Like, it's like you look at the thing. It's like, obviously, going to Elite Eight, Sweet 16. Like, we're not trying to take that away from them, but I just meant like it's not like Arkansas's run under Muss has been this foolproof, like lockdown resume that has no holes in it. And so a year like this just allows you to reanalyze some of that stuff and think, hey, these are some of these issues. Now that we've seen it truly bite Arkansas, because that's the thing is it hasn't bitten Arkansas to this point, but now that it's truly going to end up being their downfall, and now it just makes you view the entire operation through a different lens. And now going into next year, we joked the other day that like if Arkansas, this team made the NCAA tournament, we could never evaluate any December, January game. No. At least now we can do that because now this team clearly just isn't very good, and so now we know that.
Well, there's always been, with Muss, like there has been a level of consistency though. Like he's won 20 games every season. He's been a college head coach. Like things like that you come to expect, and you come to expect them to be at least playing their best ball by the end of the season. They ain't winning 20 games this year. I mean, that streak's going to be broken.
10 to go to get there, man.
I mean, that's going to be tough sledding. And I mean, if they're playing their best ball at the end of this season, I mean, maybe they will be, but like, what does that look like with this team? I don't know. I mean, it's just, it's been all over the place. And I think they took some calculated risks in the offseason with their approach because they were trying to take the next step as a program. And the thought process behind that was we need to get the offense caught up with the defense. And so they didn't address the front court with a big bruiser or a physical rebounder. They went for guys who maybe were not known for their defense because they were in theory bucket getters. And that's all fine in theory, but when those guys come and they don't pan out, and so they're not playing defense and they're also not playing with confidence offensively, or the system stinks offensively or whatever it is, it's a recipe for disaster. And so far that's kind of what we've seen is maybe not so much swings and misses, individually or whatever, because people look at it through that lens, but maybe more so what they were trying to do and what they were trying to build. It just hasn't panned out for them at all with this roster so far.
I have some things to update you guys on.
Yeah.
Ken Pomeroy has updated his website following the Arkansas-South Carolina game. Arkansas now has the number 101 offensive efficiency rating in the country. Who would have thought that was going to happen preseason? And defensively, Arkansas is sitting at a pretty 102.
So basically,
if you go to the conference,
y'all want consistency. There you go.
If you go to the conference only numbers, Arkansas is dead last in offensive efficiency, 11th in defensive efficiency, which is a shocker to me. I can't believe they're not 15th out of 14 teams. Offensive rebounding percentage in league play, dead last. Who do you think's dead last in forcing defensive turnovers? Arkansas.
I
That's
would imagine,
an
yeah.
awful recipe if you're trying to win basketball games. Don't recommend doing that.
So when they were trying to find some balance between offensive defense, this is not what they had in mind. Is basically what you're saying.
No.
I think I
Well,
just blacked out for a second.
Was that bad? Like, are those things that you need to be good in? The offense and defensive efficiencies and rebounds.
There's only
Things
two
like that.
One of them.
You'd like to be good at one of them.
Yes,
You know?
yes, at least one. And
There is not a third end to find.
No, there ain't no special teams that you can just be good in and you can hold on that. But
Arkansas would be so good at special teams under Must, though. That's one thing.
They'd be like Beamer ball over there in basketball if that was the case. This is something we have a few comments coming in, folks. Appreciate everybody listening. Get your comments here. This comes from Caleb, and I know this is something that you told me about and us about too, Curtis. Saying it's tough getting torched by guys you want out of the portal. Mac, which Mac goes for 18 points, 9 rebounds, no turnovers, had 3 assists in this game too. 6 of 10 from the field, hit 3 3-pointers in this game as well. Played only 24 minutes, which is a pretty wild thing. But you had mentioned that this was a guy that Arkansas could have, or at least was in the mix to get from the transfer portal this year.
Yeah, he was one of the early, maybe one of the hottest names that hit the portal early, like before the NCAA tournament was over, like right after portal season opened. And there was a lot of reciprocal interest there between Arkansas and BJ Mack. And, he narrowed his list down to 10. Arkansas was on it. Then he narrows his list down to a final 5. Arkansas was on it. And he scheduled a visit, and Arkansas was supposed to be his last visit. But then the communication just kind of fell off the cliff there. And he never made that visit. Then he winds up at South Carolina, and he comes in here and just absolutely torches anybody who tried to guard him. He would get switched off on, Tremont Mark or Layden Blocker in the post. They did a better job guarding him than Arkansas's forwards did. And then, Scotty and I, we talked about it quite a bit. Just, it's a big, strong, physical dude, but he's also got the ability to step out and knock down some threes. And Arkansas struggles with big men who do that. And he really made him pay. I would love to see that dude in an Arkansas uniform. He's a hoss, man.
Well, and honestly, his numbers I was looking at, and I hate to keep bringing it up, but like the numbers that he had in this game is the type of game that I expected out of Trevin Brazile.
100%.
Like most of the time. It needs to be that 15 to 18 point range, that 7 to 10 rebounds a game, efficient, getting to the free throw line. He only got 5 free throws, but still it's like that's the stat line that I would expect to see Trevin Brazile. And it's almost like, man, yeah, it would have been nice to see him. Would have been nice to see him in a Razorback uniform, but that was just a clinic that he put on Arkansas. They had no answer for him.
Can I jump in real quick, John? What are our theories as to why this team maybe competes and at least tries behind closed doors and it just doesn't translate to games? Like I don't know if I even want to say this, but I will, I guess. I mean, I've been loud wrong, the last 2 days straight. I wonder if they're competitive and fiery behind closed doors because they enjoy going at each other. And then when they have to go at somebody else, they don't enjoy it as much.
No, I think that there could be some truth behind it because we've seen teams too that, at least from what we hear from coaches and whatnot, it's always hard to see what's going on behind closed doors and in practices because we don't get a chance to do that. But I believe that there is some truth to where if you're a team that does really well in practice and the coaches keep saying, oh, practice, they look great, we're looking ready and all that. There's 2 things I look at, what you said, Scotty, but also maybe it's just a very generic answer, but the mental toughness to where if you got it all in practice, and then if you go into the game and then South Carolina, for instance, does something to disrupt that game plan or disrupt what you had planned or what you thought the game would be, then like you just crap your pants and you don't know what to do. Like that's kind of how I look at it is like, you just don't know how to handle when you get hit back. Like you can try to hit somebody because even against A&M, not saying this is the reason they won, but they got off to an 8-0 start after the first 5 minutes a game. And
6-0 at the first media for sure. And it might have got
right.
up to 8-0,
and I'm not saying that's the reason they won because again, they gave up the lead, but that at least carried that confidence that they could have had for a while. And when they got down here early, the confidence was like, well, crap. Well, I guess we're not winning today because everything we planned about doing, everything we wanted to do is just out the door and out the window. So there's no point in it anymore.
It was very interesting to hear, Must say after that game against Texas A&M, he said like Arkansas needed to lead a game from start to finish. like that they needed to do that because the confidence was shaken. They've been playing from behind. They've been struggling, and they haven't been handling adversity well or playing with a sense of urgency. So, yeah, I mean, they led from start to finish in that one, and you're 100% right. Like the energy and the body language and the communication, the connectivity, like everything about this team completely flipped on its head as soon as South Carolina made a couple shots early in the game. Like it didn't take long. What was it, like 10-4 or something? And you're just looking out there going, this is different, man. Like this feels a lot different than the other day. And for whatever reason, like overcoming adversity, even just little bouts of it like that, like this group just really hasn't been able to do it outside of, T Mark making that historic shot the other night. I mean, they've really, really struggled. Like you said, John, when somebody punches them in the mouth, I don't know that they've really been able to punch back too much at all.
The only guy early in the game that I thought had at least a little bit of pep in his step or bounce in his step or whatever you want to say was Devo.
Yep.
Hit a couple shots, maybe had an assist early, and then you look at the final box and he finishes 3 for 13 from the floor, man.
He had some wild misses.
I don't know what you do about that.
He was chucking it at the end.
Not to say that it's all on Devo, but I mean, it's can't sustain anything except giving up buckets on defense. And again, we may have talked about it, John, on your show earlier this week. There's just been countless times this year when Arkansas is maybe at that point where they've got the crowd in the game and they need a big defensive stop big stop and a score to really make the building pop. Arkansas got it to 7 in the second half. And then Carolina came back with what was it, like an 11-1 run or something like that? Just they've got just like no grit, gumption. I don't know if gumption's the right word. I pulled that one from Ellis's Twitter header. But this team's just got it's just missing a big something where they can't really dig their heels in defensively and just get big stops when they need them. It seems like they're incapable right now.
What they're missing is that dog where the heart is supposed to be on the X-rays. That's what they're missing.
Well, I wonder also, this is a little bit of an older team. We mentioned last year Muss had the team with all these freshmen, and it seemed he was really frustrated at times with that group and kind of their inability to pick some things up. I wonder with this older group with some veterans, proven pieces like a Tremont Mark and a Devo Davis and Mackay, who he knows and has trusted over the years. I wonder if he maybe leans on those guys a little bit too much or kind of lets them figure it out a little too much, thinking, hey, this is an older group. And like we talked about, they practice well. So I wonder if there's a little bit of the disconnect where maybe Muss doesn't feel the need to have to motivate them every second of the day because he's like, oh, these are older guys, like thinking the same thing we're thinking of. Oh, maybe they turned the corner. Maybe they did this. And they just keep letting him down at every step of the way. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe so.
I don't know where to go with that one. You might be right.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever been at more of a loss, honestly, than I am right now.
Yeah.
And and for a while there, we were like, oh yeah, but we did say that a few years, last year, and we always say that it feels different. Like, no, really, I'm lost, man, with this team. I just don't know what's going on, and I'm sure, if I feel that way, if we feel that way, it's very painfully evident that that's kind of what Eric Musselman's dealing with, and even the players like Davenport in there. He was distraught, man. Like he was really upset. I thought he was going to cry when he was in there at the podium. He didn't, but he just had that look on his face.
He was face palming before he even started taking questions.
And kudos to him for sitting up there and answering what were some tough questions. But he's just in disbelief, I think, as much as anyone else about what's going on right now. And everybody knows and can identify that there's a very clear issue, like something's off, there's a disconnect, but nobody knows how to fix it. And when nobody's on the same page, turning it around and doing it consistently, like I don't know how the heck you do it.
At least from what we see, it doesn't look like the body language indicates that it seems like there's nobody that's interested in fixing it. It's just kind of like, I'm water, I flow. If we lose, we lose. If we win, great. I guess we got another game later in the week. It's kind of just feels like one of those deals to me.
Yeah. Well, guys, I know we've been going for a while here, and again, appreciate everybody watching in. Before we go though, and wrap up here, go with you guys, Curtis and Scotty first. Just next game at Ole Miss on the road. Until they win or until they show something, I'm not going to predict them to win. But this matchup in this game, I mean, what are the chances that Arkansas can? I even hate to even ask the stupid question. Like, what's the chances they bounce back in this game in Oxford? Like, what's the chances of that happening at all right now?
Well, I mean, before tip-off of this game, I thought, you know what? they could get some momentum and go into Ole Miss, a team that I think is, improved but overrated. And maybe that's where they can kind of get over the hump for the first time on the road. But look, when you look at Chris Beard, it's year one for Chris Beard, but his teams, they have an identity, and it's toughness and it's physicality and it's defense, and it's all the things that Arkansas doesn't have right now. It's a bad matchup for Arkansas. That doesn't mean they can't go in there and beat them, because I think Arkansas is a more talented team, but I ain't got no reason, like you said, to believe that it's going to happen, on Wednesday. So my confidence is kind of, it was heading up, it was trending in the right direction, and now it's kind of flatlined like this team did today. I don't see them getting it done in Oxford on Wednesday.
No, at this point, I don't either. And Alan Flanagan, by the way, if you didn't know, transferred from Auburn to Ole Miss. He gets up for Arkansas, and I would imagine Chris Beard, his first time playing against Arkansas in the SEC, he's probably going to be pretty fired up about that too, given he's got some history in the state. I don't see it right now, and things could change, but could change between now and Wednesday before tip off. But I don't know, something pretty drastic is going to have to happen. Like Alan Flanagan and two other guys on Ole Miss's team get sick and they're missing the game, or just something like that. It's going to have to be drastic for me to pick Arkansas to win.
Well, and also you could be getting an Ole Miss team that's in a little bit of desperation mode, because they had a tough loss against LSU the other day. They're at Auburn today, so another revenge spot for Alan Flanagan. It's a big revenge tour for him. He's going to have another one against Arkansas, so they might catch him at a bad time. But Ole Miss is likely to be 2-3 welcoming Arkansas into that home game on Wednesday night. So it's a game that they are going to kind of need to win, and so we'll find out which team's more desperate. But if history or this year has been any indication, I don't want to say history, this year has been any indication, Arkansas is not going to be the more desperate team on the floor, and it probably won't show in their effort or body language. So I'm with you guys. Like, could they beat Ole Miss on the road? Sure, they could beat them anywhere. Like Curtis said, I don't think Ole Miss is this juggernaut. They're definitely not a top 25 team. They won't be ranked on Monday, and they will not be ranked for the rest of the year. They're not a top 25 team. They're a borderline tournament team. So it's the type of team that, a type of game that if Arkansas were truly a bubble team, this would be a big one. But I don't think Arkansas is anywhere near the bubble at this moment. And until further notice, I have no reason to believe they're going to get there. And so perhaps this Ole Miss game can be that launching point like we've been hoping would happen and like we thought happened Tuesday. But I'm with you guys. I currently, until I'm sold otherwise, I can't imagine Arkansas goes and beats an actually competent team on the road on Wednesday.
Yeah.
No, it's just today's game just threw such a wet blanket on a really exciting deal that we found out early, before the game, that College Game Day is coming to Bud in a week for the Kentucky game. And now literally nobody gives a damn at all.
Nope.
Nobody. It's like now people for years have wanted Game Day to come to Arkansas. Now they're coming and people are like, why? Why? Don't get it.
Yeah. Like, what's the point? Like, I mean, you could have a Bud, especially if they get trounced by Ole Miss. I mean, Bud Walton could have only about 11,000, 12,000 people there, and it's going to be disappointing, but it's the truth. And, going back to the Ole Miss game too, at this point, I don't even think that Arkansas makes it close. Like, I really don't. Just after seeing today and seeing kind of the way the Ole Miss plays and seeing how Arkansas's performed on the road, I think Arkansas loses this game by 15 points. I really do. And unless just somebody or a couple guys for Arkansas just can't miss from the floor. Like, I feel like this could be like a game that ends up Ole Miss winning 78-62, something like that.
That'd be an improvement from the Georgia game. So,
well, there you go. Progress in all the right ways. But,
or I guess the Florida game is what I mean.
Florida game, yeah. Georgia was still bad. I mean, it's hard to.
Florida was their last road game. Right?
Yeah, it's really confusing.
I was getting my blowout against a bad team mixed up. So
it happens. Yeah, there's a lot of those this year, unfortunately. So, but Curtis and Scotty, great job, guys. Appreciate y'all. Again, everybody, be sure to listen to the pod at the Palace. I'm sure it's going to be a great one after a game like this and plenty of things to dive into.
Therapy session.
Yeah, a little therapy session will help there too. And appreciate you guys, Andrew, Ellis. Appreciate you as well. And I'm John Neighbors. I guess we're gonna do a live reaction show after the Ole Miss game, and maybe who knows? Maybe it'll be a little bit better then. Probably not, but we'll use it all as therapy sessions for all you Razorback fans until baseball season arrives, and then they can disappoint you too somehow. So either way, we're gonna keep it moving, folks. Enjoyed it. Again, follow Natty State Sports on everything social media, YouTube. Subscribe to us. Check it out, as we're going to have a lot of great content this week, not just with basketball, but some other things too. And we're going to keep it moving. But everybody try to have a great rest of your Saturday. Try to stay warm out there. And we will talk to you on Monday. See you then.